tricks and consulting advice that you can maybe bring back home and use. Oh, Colin, you're muted.
Of course I am, right?
Yeah.
So guys, we're going to do one poll today to start to see where everybody's at in the process. You know, whether you're fully manual, semi-automated, fully automated. So we're gonna get a pulse react so we can tailor the presentation to where you're at and kind of get you up to speed with some things. So I'm gonna share that. This will be the first and last survey. So I'm just gonna make it live. It's live right now, so feel free to kind of jump in. So semi-automated is winning, still winning, still winning. So we have 40% who voted. Okay, we're at 56. Thanks, guys. Keep going. Okay, 60. We leave it open for another 10 seconds. So it looks like right now in voting, share results. It looks like semi-automated, but still needs human development is leading significantly. So do you guys see that? Everybody see it? Perfect. Thanks, guys. Share results. Close that. Now we'll go back to the presentation, and I will hand it back to Rebecca.
Sounds awesome. Great. Well, with those poll results in mind, I'm going to talk about the challenges that we face with the contract process, especially when we're using any kind of outdated contract management software. As we can see here, challenges in our contract process account for about 65% of delays in closed deals, and that increases our cost by 37% and accounts for 30% of lost revenue. So when we talk about using an outdated or ineffective contract management database and software, we're talking about real dollars that are being lost by not having an effective progress in place. So I'm going to talk more about those different kind of challenges that we see. The first one is the big one, slowing down deals that are coming through the door. Just some highlights in here that I'm sure are pain points that we've all experienced it. Tracking red lines, making sure we're all in the same document form. How many times have you been reviewing a document and it's version 72 _ final _ use this one _ no, actually this one. And you're trying to get your red lines in, you're trying to figure out which one you're working with versus which one your team is working with. And then only to discover the counterparty that you're working with is using version 78. So you're really losing all that time, not only with trying to do the whole tracking of red lines and making sure your version is correct, but also the possibility of editing and reviewing the completely incorrect document. So really making sure that your contract management database has the ability to capture those red lines and really make sure that you have the ability to make sure everyone's on the same page of what you're looking at is huge. Also diving deeper into version control. We see a lot of different versions that may not be the correct one. And also, I know a lot of legal departments, when it comes to different clauses, have little Word documents that live on your desktop that you have, and you like to insert your own clauses here. But how do you make sure your entire department is using the same set of clauses so that each time you have to go and get approvals or use that standard language, you're all on the same page and you're all using the same language, as opposed to everyone on their own little island using their own little clauses? And then also the approval process. How many times have you had to have something approved and you have to go manually hunt that down or search for emails or remind people over and over again, hey, we need this approval. Have you read this contract yet? Has this been approved? All of these issues slow down deals. And what we see is the more manual a process is, the more errors that are involved with it and the slower these deals become. So that's with deals that are coming in the door. But now what about the legacy contracts that you already have? How do you make sure you know what's in them? How do you make sure that your risk is being mitigated and that you are avoiding all those issues that come up with not knowing what's in your documents? So a really great way to make sure that your contract management database is using its full efficiency is to involve AI to review those documents, to make sure this is what we have and this is what currently our legacy documents say. And that can really help out a company in a multiple different ways, making sure that AI is applied to your legacy documents. If you were to ever unfortunately experience a data breach, you want to be looking and resolving that data breach, not going through your contract saying, okay, what are our reporting? Are they 24 hours? Is it 48? You don't want to be doing that. You want to be able to have a report that you can instantly pull down and say, okay, these are the people we need to notify in this time period. Let's now resolve our breach, as opposed to reviewing 1,000 contracts for that timetable. Also with your compliance, making sure that your documents are up and your contracts are up to compliance based on what the current laws are. For example, with GDPR, we're faced with a huge deadline at the end of December for updated SECs. Right now, with your contract management database and your legacy contracts, do you know where that standing is? Can you just run a report and say, these are the ones that we currently have, these are the ones we don't? And the ability to be able to pull that data down and say, all right, these are the 25 clients we need to focus on that we need to get the new SECs on, will help you in the long run really make sure that your compliance is correct. And not just with GDPR, we're talking with all different kinds of different laws like CCPA, Privacy Shield, other data privacy laws, and also laws that aren't necessarily data privacy related. And then also pulling the key metrics from these legacy documents that your own organization wants to know about. So we're talking things internally, things like your SLA requirements or your limited liability language. How does that molded over the years? Or let's say that you really, really want to focus on marketing language and say, we want to know which clients we can use in our language to say, hey, these are the people that we do business with. How would you pull that information other than a manual review of your documents? Bringing in that AI and bringing in your contract management database that's a really efficient one will help it. So those are just snaps of a finger. You can pull that information. You can instantly look and you can instantly report back to your team and say, this is where we're standing. This is what's in our legacy documents. This is what we need to go forward. That's also really going to help on the revenue leakage side of things to make sure that you know exactly what's in your contracts to make sure that you can hit your obligations. Because when it comes to making sure that you're not churning a lot of clients, that you hit those obligations, that your client is happy, you're doing what's in your contract, everyone's on the exact same ground. And that also really, really helps with your renewals because then you're ahead of the process already. You're not behind the curve. You know when your renewal is coming up, you know what the terms are in your documents, and you can just pull it up and have an instant view of what's going on with your contracts. So really making sure that your contract management software is up to date and is functioning will save so much time in the long run for legal to be a legal department. All right, now that we've talked about all those challenges that can be faced, I'm going to turn it over to Christelle, who's going to talk about successfully building how organizations go into this contracting process.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Rebecca. So like you mentioned, there are so many different opportunities for things to be improved in the process. But sometimes it's baby steps, and sometimes we're looking for different opportunities for efficiencies. It's amazing to have that vision, those opportunities, that AI. You're not as far away from it as you might think, but want to spend the next couple of slides giving you some tips and tricks for how to get there, what some incremental steps to do that. So focusing first on the opportunities for efficiencies. One of the things that we do as a consulting practice is come in and understand the business processes. If we understand your business process, especially the handoffs and the pain points, then we can give you advice that's more specific to the areas that are painful or need improving. Another opportunity that we always talk to our clients about is the opportunity for standardizing. How many times have you guys have folders upon folders upon folders of different types of documents, or the legal operations team will pull the last version that they used on last client, and that one worked pretty well. So I'll just go ahead and use it again and save as. But if you can identify opportunities for standardizing templates or clauses or addendums, that's really going to improve your efficiencies and building a repository of those templates for the team to very easily be able to access. That means that you're going to have that standardized functionality, and means that you're going to have less risk of that clauses that maybe was a special permission for that group doesn't get carried forward and end up becoming your standard just because everyone's used it. And the last opportunity to look for is anticipate the contract cycle. So going back to the business process, understanding that full life cycle of the business and including the renewals and amendments. Once you get there and understand all of that, then you can anticipate what the downstream people are going to need. The sales team will understand why the legal team might need a little bit more information. And while the sales team might not want to put all of the information in the first time they touch an opportunity, they might now have a better understanding of what goes into the entire contract cycle and therefore be able to provide that more cleanly. You can also use the system, if you have a system, to start putting in required fields, conditionally required fields, again, anticipating the eventual contract cycle. The next slide I'm going to show you is one of our techniques that we use. I former Deloitte, so we use it at Deloitte. Now we use it at Forefront. BPO stands for Business Process Optimization. Sorry, the consultant in me always has to have an acronym or two. But really what you want to do is first identify a cross-functional group of team members. You don't want to only hear from the legal team or only hear from the sales team, or I'll meet with them all separately. That sounds great because maybe it's really hard to get the time, but spend the time, plan it out far enough in advance that you can have this cross-functional group of team members meeting together. Next step you want to do is document a reasonably complex business process. I'm sure everyone has heard of the 80-20 rule. So you don't want to go for that 20% use case that happened one-off to one person, one time, and it was really complex. But you also don't want to go for the NDA that's just going to fly through the system with no reviews on it. You want to find a reasonably complex process so that you can then go to step 3 and understand the complexities and difficulties that are faced by the different groups. Now, if you just do that and just document that reasonably complex process, you're going to have something that you can do onboarding for your new team members. You're going to have a better understanding of each other and why the legal team might need something and the sales team might push back and say, well, I don't need it, because just doing that top half of this is going to get you somewhere. It's going to make some progress and it's going to be worth the time just there. But if you want to take it to the next level, here's some other tips for you. Take that reasonably complex business process and put it out on a whiteboard and have it, boxed out with the flow chart. And then ask everybody to sit at their desk. And this usually does work a little bit better when you're in person, but there are whiteboarding tools that work very well with this as well. But have everybody sit at their desk with 3 different color sticky notes. And so one is really a pain point, something that's not working well. Have them document that. Then at their desk, anything that's selling point, that's working well, don't touch this. And the third one is an optimization idea. Hey, have you thought of? Now, the reason I'm emphasizing sitting at their desk is because you want people to feel empowered to bring the ideas that they wouldn't have maybe voiced out in a room. That if you start asking go around the table, people will just be like, oh yeah, that's ditto what they said, right? They're just, yes, what they said I agree with. If you ask everybody to do it separately and then bring it up and stick it on the process that you whiteboarded out, then you can see where in the process there's a lot of red sticky notes, where in the process there's a lot of green sticky notes. It's working well. Okay, let's not touch that. And some crazy ideas. Ask people to have crazy ideas. The other reason I suggest sticky notes is it's a little bit more anonymous. If somebody really wanted to overanalyze and assess handwriting, they can maybe figure it out. But it allows that anonymity that somebody can bring forward an idea for another group, and the other group isn't going to say, oh, well, why is so-and-so from legal telling me what to do in sales? They don't understand, and shutting down an idea. So it's allowing for more brainstorming of what could be the art of the possible. Now that you have this all up on the board, let's prioritize it, right? And assess the different things that you want to do by the value and effort. You don't want to put a bunch of effort in a money pit that has low value. You want to maybe hit some of those quick wins first. So that's something that you want to make sure that you think about with your different things. You can't do it all. One of the things that we always say is there's only one way to eat an elephant, and that's one bite at a time. So make sure that you're strategic and thoughtful about that. And that goes to that third step with the road mapping. So then now that you've prioritized it, maybe now you want to place it out on a roadmap, because you can get there. And some of the amazing user stories that Rebecca was mentioning at the beginning can be on your roadmap, but you might need incremental steps beforehand. So maybe you need to standardize your agreements and clauses before you can get to ingesting them, before you can get to the AI piece. But if you have that on your roadmap, that's a way for you to think about it and have a vision and where you're heading. So these are some techniques. Hopefully this is something that you can feel empowered to do. The benefits for this, obviously, you're going to get information faster between one another. If you understand each other and understand why something's happening, you can therefore share the right information at the right time. You also have more productivity between team members. Again, because they're getting the information faster, they can then be more efficient in how they're working on what they need to work on. And it reduces the friction between the team members, because oftentimes when there is friction, it's due to a lack of understanding and understanding the complexities that that other team is facing. But when you pull up those silos and you understand and move more cross-functionally, you can really reduce some friction there. And all that leads to the necessity to get to automation, where you can identify automated processes. I like to joke, sometimes we're saving you a couple of seconds because the system is sending an email versus you. But you know what? Those seconds add up to minutes, the minutes add up to hours. And that's the time that you can then focus on what you want to do. You don't want to be sending emails. You don't want to be the one, when a salesperson says, hey, where is this? Let me go find it and in this folder. And that you want them to be able to self-service. And that saves you time and that saves them time. So automation is definitely something that you need to work on so you can work on your meaningful activities. I'll pass it back over to Colin, just to talk a little bit about innovation.
Thank you, Christelle. I think you've shared there the playbook for change management as well, right along with the process. Yeah. So really quickly, I just wanted to kind of talk about two use cases with innovation. And I know a lot of people that are in attendance today that are using Conga already, and I'm going to point out to one of them that was at 3 companies with me as my chief software engineer, who I brought with me every time, Krish Mundram. When we're working on these big projects, like a lot of things that we've seen, and I know every company sees these with legacy agreements. And I got to give kudos to Conga here as well with the new AI tool and what they've built. That the legacy agreements that you typically deal with an offshore team, usually an offshore team. If you do it in house, it's thousands of hours of work to be able to kind of trap all your metadata to be able to access it freely. With the Conga new tool, like with this innovation, it's right there at your fingertips, right? That's one thing that I feel like that kind of fits into a CLM process. It's actually ingenious. I wish I had it when Chris and I were working at Twitter, Global Foundries and so on, and other places, because it would have just saved a lot of time with efficiencies. But I think, Rebecca, you've also kind of alluded to, like, when the regulator comes knocking, right? And, the world we're living in now, when ex-presidents' houses are getting raided, right? There's, no business is safe for privacy and regulation. We got to get our documents in order really quickly. And there's so many use cases with big companies out there. And I know some people in attendance right now, are thinking about that, day in, day out with their legal teams. Just being able to find your documents, like, really, really quickly, is a big win for any legal team. And I would just say kudos to your product. I looked at it, like, in depthly. And I would say, like, that's a big part of this puzzle. Not only you solving kind of your workflows, your processes, your change management, but the innovation piece is huge as well. And hand it back to Christelle to kind of knock it out of the park. Thanks.
Perfect. So sometimes when people hear the word innovation, they think of these huge programs, and I've been involved in those huge programs that take multiple years and lots of money. But one thing that I want you to take home is that innovation doesn't necessarily mean a complete overhaul. Using that BPO technique, you can start simple and then grow. Just understanding it can lead to a lot of innovation by being open to ideas, being open to input from others, and discovering how others interact with the system. You might not have anticipated what they and how they use the tool, and then you can identify ways to innovate from there. So just don't want anybody to get scared by the way of the word innovation. Innovation can mean small incremental growth. As long as you have a vision and a plan in mind, that's what's really key. And by you even attending this session and interest in this session, you're already starting there. I think I turn it over to Rebecca next to take that home.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And from a legal department, I really wanted to hit home on ways for legal to be innovative and to really kind of package this entire thing up and let you know that every single thing we're talking about here does not replace a legal department. There's no way that what we're doing here is going to replace the people on this call or legal departments in general. What we are talking about here are ways to make the legal department function better as a legal department, really making sure that instead of reviewing 10,000 documents, you're really honing down and you're really reviewing the 100 that really matter, taking your time and make it as efficient as possible. And then from there, really opening it up so that legal departments can be legal departments. They don't have to be paper pushers. They don't have to be people trying to go through red wells, trying to figure out where their contracts are, really making it so that you can do what your job is. And that also is going to help out the business a lot. When a legal department is free to be more of a change maker within the business, you can really hit home more with more expansions, more M&As, making sure your compliance is up to date, and also really being a tool for the rest of the team when it comes to the renewal process and helping out with the contract management process. So really making sure that this type of software and this management is really putting the power back in the legal department by giving the data to the legal department so they can make the best decisions. And also that the legal department can be proactive instead of reactive. So you can be ahead of the curve instead of always feeling like you're just 2 steps behind, just trying to keep up. Really, really making sure that we take the technology that's out there, applying it to our own tools, and making sure that we take full advantage of it. All right, so with that, I'm going to go over some key takeaways, just a quick little summary of what we've been talking about here to hit everything home. Risk management, it's a normal component of the legal department, but also making sure that you find that balance between innovation and risk management. I mean, we're not using typewriters anymore, so that innovation is always going to be there, but you can also reconcile that with your risk management process. And more to what Christelle said, innovation doesn't have to be huge. Think about all the things that you've done to innovate that weren't rocking the entire ship. You don't have to redo your process, scrub it out, and start from fresh day one. You can do small incremental changes that are going to add huge value to our organization, and it's going to really help free up your department's time. And also with that, the more you innovate, the more you're going to be looked at someone who's an innovator. You can become, innovation can become a flywheel. And once you start being that person who shows that you'd like to innovate, your peers are going to look to you for more ideas. The leadership in your organization are going to look to you for more ideas. And it's going to help continue the path for your organization to grow and be more innovative and be ahead of the curve and more proactive. So that's what I have. That's what we all have.
Brilliant. Thank you. And we're opening up for questions. If anybody's got questions, Jeff Kang, I'm not calling on anybody, or Jonathan, Krish, Megan, if any of you guys have questions, Maria, just put them in the chat box and we'll address them. I've got a follow-up question for, Rebecca and Christelle. It's like, so we've seen, like, we've looked at the market and what's out there, and we've seen like the merge of Aptus and Conga together. What are the wins for folks that had one system now with another system, or bringing those technologies together? I remember using Xother a while ago, and I remember it was just an awesome tool when it was done. You had this playbook at your disposal for negotiations. That's definitely a win. Is there something that people should be thinking about? What's available to them right now that, from what they're used to? Right now they're sitting with one system. If they use, other features or benefits, will that give them like extra superpowers? Is there anything available?
Yeah, I can jump in here. So the one thing that comes to the top of my mind right now is the AI automation tool. We call it CCI, and that really is something that we've launched with our CLM at Conga, and it does what I've been talking about. It takes your legacy documents, reviews them, and makes it so that you can then use that data without having to do that manual review. And that's something that we find is it's like a complete game changer for what we're working on, and being able to take a snapshot of your documents and your contracts, being able to put them right in. So definitely CCI, that's our big one. It's our AI automation tool, and it's life-changing for legal departments.
AI automation tool. Okay. And is that part of your offering, or is that like standalone? Yeah, could somebody just say, "Hey, I want to just do the CCI," or could they got to buy the whole suite and they get that as part of it? How is it built in?
I believe it's part of our of the tools that we offer, and it goes in. We sell it in connection with our CCI tool, so and also with our Conga contract. So both tools have that.
Got it. Christelle, what are you seeing like in the market with with AI adoption for companies come in? Is it, are people kind of moving towards it?
Absolutely.
More?
Absolutely. So AI is something that's been a buzzword for a number of years, but I think more and recently we're getting the tools and the methodology and the governance to actually be able to use the AI functionality to the way that it should. Like Rebecca mentioned, this Conga CCI tool, really impressed by it. When it first came out, I'll be honest, I was a little skeptical. I'm like, no way. We actually didn't, when I think it came out, when they first acquired it, I was like, I'm not even going to advise. The first round is never going to be great. But since have changed my tune completely, really impressed by it and how accurate it is. So that's one piece of it. But then AI in terms of understanding the throughput and understanding what the team is spending time in, where the agreements are getting stuck, what type of clauses are getting the process stuck. So that's the reporting and functionality that I think is being more heavily leveraged than it has in the past. In the past, it was just an accelerated process. Now we're getting smarter about how to use that functionality to enhance the process and make it better earlier. Like we said, maybe there's a clause that gets as a sticking point for almost every client. Well, hey, legal team, can we adjust the language that's more amenable to both parties so that we don't therefore get stuck at that point in the process? So there's different ways that the technology is helping improve the business, not just accelerate the business.
Oh, brilliant. It looks like we have a couple of questions. Jennifer states you can do standalone CCI or integrate it with a full contract management solution. Jeff, yes, CCI is from the contract wrangler acquisition. That's answered. And Edgar, staying on technology, one of my struggles is to marry our people/HR tool with our contract management tool. Onboarding and deprovisioning is huge. With in-flight contract projects, any thoughts on how to make that a better experience? Better to me means less manual effort. That means the exact same thing to me. Anybody want to take that?
I mean, I think it's a hard question to answer. At least the consultant in me is going, I need a lot more information to give, very specific advice. But, I think it's the understanding that people and the process, in my mind, are always going to be augmented by the technology. So the technology shouldn't be the catalyst. It should be understanding the people in the process and like we were saying, where things are getting stuck along the way. And if you're talking about in-flight contracts, why are they taking a while? I'm trying to see if I can focus on any of the onboarding pieces of it. So making sure that the signature process is happening very quickly. The time kills all deals is a universal mantra, whether you're talking about onboarding or NDAs or MSAs. So trying to find and understand the people and the process and how those are working together, and then getting that technology side to augment it where possible. That's at least my mentality and approach to it.
Perfect. Jonathan, he pinged me with a question. It says, convincing sales teams, they want things done urgently. Strategies on how to convince them to work on an automation project in which results won't be available for a quarter or longer.
Yeah, I would love to take a first stab at that one, because that's an area that I focused in tremendously. So my previous history at Deloitte, I was on the CRM sales side of it, and then now at Forefront more on the CLM, the middle office space. And no offense to any salespeople out here, but salespeople like that new shiny object. They want to move fast. They want to be selling. That's how they're compensated. That's how they're driven. And so there are definitely times where they're going, me filling out this information at the start versus sending an email and said, hey, legal, I need an NDA by tomorrow. And then NDA has to, legal has to figure out the rest. It's a slower process for them. And they're saying, this is slowing me down. So that's when I go, you know what, guys, you're right. That step in that process is going to take you longer. You are absolutely right. I'm not going to try to convince you that it's not. But the most important thing is to focus on the whole process and being able to self-serve along the way. So you're not then waiting for the legal team, and that if the legal team is getting, pinging you back with, well, what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And what about this? That takes time. It doesn't feel like it takes as much time, but it is a distraction to you. It's a process that takes a lot more iterations than if you give the good information up front. And especially if you put the right metrics in, that's the balancing act of the consultant part of what do you make required when, what do you make a drop down versus an open text, where do you have validations and controls. That's the conversation you need to have so that it can be the right level of lift for your sales team in order for the overall process to therefore shorten, be more accurate, have the right reporting at the end. So you try to help them see not just that microcosm of, yes, importing or implementing my opportunity or my estimate request or whatever the request form is. If they're only focusing on that, then they're probably right. It probably is going to take a little bit more time, and it's not a sexy thing to be doing when you can be selling. But if you help them see the overall, the bigger vision, that's when they start getting a little bit more excited. And then once they start using the tool, and seeing that the information is available at their fingertips, and see where they've lost deals in the pipeline and what stage that was in. Once they start seeing that, then that really is where they get excited about it.
Wow, that's so just jumping back, that was a great answer to, and I'm sure you could talk about this for days. But jumping back, like, to the use of the product, right? It's like some people like just are heavy on sales, path to least resistance, start on Salesforce, run their cycles. Other people have a different use case for a system. Does Conga offer like standalone system for negotiations that's not necessarily in sales, but more could be a procurement, inbound contracts? What type of other offerings do you guys have?
Yeah, Conga has a ton of different solutions that are available. We use a lot of our own tools at Conga for just those things, for like procurement processes and for vendors, people who are coming in not necessarily in the sales department. And what we found is that it really, really helps with that timeline that we're talking about, and making sure that our contracts are correct and that we are able to do that procurement and vendor review in a more timely manner than if we were to do anything in a one-off. So we use what's so great about Conga's products is that you can not only use them for customer facing, but you can also use them for vendor facing or procurement facing contracts. So it's kind of like a one-stop solution where you really can get what you want out of it, depending on what your needs are. So that's something that I really like. It's like the tool is just so malleable, and you're able to fit it to your needs. And really being able to do not only customer facing deals, but also procurement and vendor facing deals within the same tool is something that makes the process so much easier.
Yeah, I would love to add on to that if it's all right. At Forefront, we've done a number of buy side and sell side implementations at the same time. And you're right, Rebecca, it's important for the data to be shared, because there's not two Microsofts, right? There's one. And you interact with them in different places, but you would probably want to know, or your sales team would want to know, if they're interacting, but you also still have the controls in the visibility and the sharing rules and that flexibility. We've had organizations that very much shut it down between sales groups, and so they don't have any sharing. We have organizations that have it wide open, and everybody's kumbayaing, and that's the flexibility of the tool, that you can allow for that. Now you have to have the right structure and thought process. You can't just go in blind and start configuring. You want to think about how your people and process need to be supported by that technology. So you can absolutely do buy side and sell side together. You just got to figure out the right process and the right people effort to do it.
So you mentioned data feeds. So I'd imagine like it working on Salesforce and platforms like that, you got this robust collection of data. How is that data being used for the in-house teams, customers to kind of get value out of it, right?
Yeah.
And in the context of Jeff's question, like with your merger of Aptus, like could you answer it like in the context of his question, with the offerings and roadmaps of how how these two systems kind of came together? I think people are generally interested and they want to know like what are the no Conga, the no Aptus, like what are the two of them offering?
Yeah. I can take the part about the data. An analogy that I'll impart with you guys. You can use my secret sauce. This seems to work and resonate really well with people who are newer to the technology space. Think of Salesforce as your iPhone, right? And so you've got your basic platform, and then Conga is an app that resides on it. Now it's not as simple as downloading from the App Store, but you share the contacts, you share pictures, you share the calendar with that Conga app. And so by having that functionality all built in, you don't have your DSL camera, you don't have your Rolodex, you have it all in one platform that you can use together and access together. So that data being all in the same place allows for you to be a lot more efficient. You're not trying to transfer information between different places. So having that together, the data all together is really important. I don't know, Rebecca, if you want to talk about the roadmap and offering for Conga since you are.
Yeah. Absolutely. So what I've seen with the CLM that Aptus had offered and also Conga's Conga contracts, the merger together was just like exploded the availability of these two great systems to just go off of each other. All the time that I see something will be implemented in Conga contracts, and then because we're all the same house now, we'll say, okay, how do we implement that in our CLM? So being able to take from both databases and leveling them up and saying, how do we make the best system possible? So that's really how I've seen the merger impact Conga and Aptus. Now with us being one company, we're able to take that entire brain trust that we have in two great contract management systems and use them for each other and say, what's our next level? What's the next idea we're going to have here? And also, how do we make both of our systems better? We're comparing to each other. So really, I think the merger has impacted it in a great way, really pushing us forward and really taking our management databases and pushing them to the next level.
Yeah. And I would agree, just from an outsider's perspective. So I was invited to Conga's Partner Summit where they laid out their vision for the next few years and really impressed by it. It was something that I think I agree with the vision. I align with the vision. The revenue recognition wheel, as I don't want to call it, but everybody calls it, is just, it's great. It's all going to be API driven. Everything's going to be easily integratable, which is also a big concern for people looking to implement any type of technology. Is you have other technologies, right? Everyone's got other technologies. And so how do you integrate this with something that you already have in place? And Conga's making that easier. They're making APIs that are open that you're going to be able to leverage. And so you don't have to completely lift and shift your entire platform. You can use the pieces of Conga functionality and bring that in and make it streamlined with your process. So I think they're making themselves really easy to use, and then they have best in class functionality without a doubt on that.
Perfect. That's where I was trying to get at, asking the Conga app this question 3 times in a row. Mm-hmm. But it's like thank you so much for answering that. The reason I'm asking so much about that is like the X-Order component was one of the best things I've ever seen in any system, right? And I think that should be available to all Conga users, right? Once done properly, it's probably the best negotiation playbook I've seen out there, hands down. Yeah, that's all
awesome.
I have to say about
we
that.
Love X-Author, so I'm very happy to hear that. I think, it's like game changer, really, having all the availability to do that. And back when I was talking to you about red lines and issues with that, and also with clause libraries, like that just fits right into it. Trying to make the legal department's life easier is our main goal here. And you rarely find companies that that's their main objective, to make a legal department's life easier. And I feel like X-Author is one of the best examples of that, really trying to hone into what a legal department needs and how we can help them.
Mm-hmm. And making it seamless with their existing process too, because everybody uses Word, right? That's what they use. And so rather than a lot of times when I go in to implement and they hear Conga and they're going, oh great, I'm gonna have to make my document in Conga because they don't know. I'm like, no, you get to stay in Word. You just get to enhance your Word functionality, and you got to just bring it in, the pieces in for you, and their minds are blown that they're able to stay with what they know and love, the Word functionality, and then augment that with the XAuthor/Conga functionality.
Looks like we might have another question coming in now. What would you say to a new user that's looking to buy a contract management system? Why Conga? And Christelle, why don't you answer that one, since you
since I do the advisory. I mean, I think bar none, Conga CLM is the best in class functionality. There's we are open. We do other implementations, but for the CLM piece especially, that's something like we've been talking about, the XAuthor functionality, a seamless platform. It's just a great tool and technology. Also, now that I really understand the vision, and Grant Peterson on the product side, internal to Conga, really impressed by him and where he sees his vision for Conga. So I think that it's a platform that you can buy into, feel comfortable with in the long run, that it's going to work seamlessly within the technology that you have today and be able to grow with your company.
So I'm getting pinged in the private chat, what is XAuthor? So I jumped the gun without explaining it. Can you guys give a quick just overview of what XAuthor is for anybody who may be interested in listening to it?
Yeah, I can absolutely do that. So XAuthor is a tool that really associates it with your CLM management database so that you're able to perform red lines and then they automatically upload to your database. And really, it's a great collaborative tool that you can use for multiple people working on multiple different documents, making sure everything stays in the same place. And also what's great about XAuthor is being able to pull in those documents from in the process. If perchance the company that you're working with didn't make their changes in red lines, being able to pull them in XAuthor, see exactly what changed, and having that mystery taken away. Also, XAuthor is a way to use a clause library. So within a clause library in XAuthor, you can take the clauses that you need and put them into that document, just select them. So it really takes that brain power that you'd be using to say, okay, what's the best clause for this section? What did we use last time? It's already there. So you can just instantly put it in, track all of your changes, see what other changes were made by opposing counsel, even if they didn't make them in the correct one, and then automatically upload those all back to your contract management database so that they can all live there so that everyone can use them. Honestly, it's a great tool. There's so many functions with it. I feel like even though I use it all the time, I'm barely scraping the surface of what it can be used for. It's really, really helping turn around legal departments and changing the negotiation process.
Perfect. I'm on muting right now. I was giving a lot of feedback. Sorry about that, Joby. I think it looks like this is all the questions. If you have any other questions, put them in the chat box. We'll answer them. But I just want to give a huge thank you to both Rebecca and Christelle for bringing us through this. And you did it so quick and very efficiently. But we talked about a lot. The recording will be available, and somebody from Conga is going to follow up. And somebody asked already about the slides. Usually we put them in a PDF and send them across, but as soon as Conga might sign off, we'll send them across. One other question came in from Kevin Chu. Might Conga have functionality to help manage IP, copyrights, trademarks, and patents? Rebecca?
So currently there's not like a document database that's just made for managing IP. However, the great thing about Conga contracts is that it's the way that you want to use it. So it's customizable, and you can actually take your database and put in different fields that you want to use that can then track your IP. So you can totally take it where you can look at that database. You could say, where are we with our approvals in here? Where are we with our current tracking of how with the USPTO, how are these going? And you can make it into what you want to. So that's something awesome that I really like about Conga contracts, is that it's not limited by what we're giving you. It's only limited by what your imagination and what you want it to do for you.
It could definitely be repurposed based on my experience, and I've did it before, right? That's another one. I do have one other question on your roadmap. So just looking at all your offerings across the board, is there on your roadmap, is there any tools? We're seeing a lot of these pop-up companies now that use these workflows. What if did now logic to build extensions onto processes? Is that something that Conga is looking at? Because I think, with your market share, it would be great to bring that together. I can give examples of tools I'm talking about if you're interested, but I don't want to be talking about competitors on your webinar.
No, it's totally fine. Conga is always looking forward to that curve, like what is next in the market and what can help departments work more, especially with their sales departments. And something that we're seeing is the availability to have complex approval chains and that complex tools within our tools that help solve those issues. Definitely having workflows that you can configure, the accuracy and the CCI and the AI algorithm, and just really being able to solve those complex issues is something that we're always looking for the next solution.
Perfect. The questions will keep coming. We'll keep answering them. So thank you, Edgar. There's another question. Does Conga offer a separate procurement add-on that is separate from the sales side?
So, sorry, Christelle, were you going to jump in?
Probably the same thing you're going to say. Go ahead.
What I was going to say, we don't necessarily offer a separate add-in, but the way that we use it here is we use our same databases to do procurement side as well as sales side, because of what Christelle was saying earlier. Like she said, Microsoft is the same Microsoft, whether you're buying or selling to them. Really, really the availability of these tools to be able to look at it from both ways. So you don't need a separate tool for your procurement and a separate tool for your sales. Being able to have both of them together so you fully understand the relationship is something that Conga CLM does incredibly well, making sure that you can look at both avenues here and you don't have to buy extra pieces just for a different department. So it's really a holistic way of viewing your contract management.
Yeah, it has the flexibility that you can create different views for the procurement side versus the sales side, so that they have different fields that they're seeing, but that's all configuration. That's not, you need to buy a separate tool or a separate license. You can have the same license base for your sales side and your procurement side, and then just configure it appropriately to have either a very hard line between the two or a soft line between the two, depending on your business needs. I think there's a question for you, Rebecca, about third-party risk tracking.
Yeah, sure thing. So for third-party risk tracking, this is really where the AI tool comes in to play a lot, because the availability to review those contracts and put all the information in those contracts into the database, and then being able to review it from there to take a look at what our contracts are saying, and then really hone down on the risk management part of it, really making sure that we're able to see what's in them and able to see what our current relationship with parties are, to say things like, what are our sub-processors? What are their sub-processors? What are our current obligations for all of these different relationships that we have? Really being, so it's built in, and it really has a lot to do with how you configure it and what you use it for. So that's definitely, that's what we use it all the time for here. What is our relationship like? What are our sub-processors like on here? What is our risk management with these contracts that we're executing that we currently have? So that's something which is so great about the CLM tool, is how malleable it is, and you can change it into what you want it to be.
Yeah. And just to add on to the third party piece of it, that's another differentiator that I feel like Conga has. Third party agreements, once ingested into Conga, can be treated just like a document that was generated on your letterhead. So you're able to capture the obligations, you're able to capture the clauses, you're able to capture the specific effective dates, all automatically brought in from the Word document itself. So it's really powerful tool that the third party can be treated exactly like an in-house document. That's incredible, right? So you can have that piece of it and you can find those clauses. So if you're on third party, almost on third party paper, and like Rebecca was saying, if you have a data breach or you need to find where do we stand on all these clauses, you don't have to look through the third party contracts because they're third party. You can still bring that in.
That's brilliant, guys. Great question, great answer. Question from Michael Lund. Salesforce integration is something we are looking into for our CLM system. Can you provide insights around this integration and what it looks like?
Yeah, I can take that one. So it depends on, I don't know what your current platform is, if you're currently, pure Conga, but as a system, it's built on the Salesforce platform. So depending on what kind of license structure, you might not even have to do an integration. But again, that, safe harbor, that depends on how you're currently structured. I don't know that. But other than that, Conga is, like I said, doing a lot of open APIs. Integration is something with Salesforce that it would be very seamless. Other integrations might take a little bit more insight, but it is something that Forefront has a 20-year history of integrations. We've integrated anything to anything from JD Edwards to SAP to Oracle. So the systems are able to integrate. You just have to sometimes do a little bit more finessing, but Salesforce specifically is fairly streamlined standard. Again, don't know your specific instance.
Perfect. It looks like we've got about 5 minutes left. We've answered a lot of questions. We've talked about a lot. Do you guys want to leave your details for follow-up for any questions? Looks like a lot of great questions came through for the past 15 minutes or so. If you guys want to follow up, we're going to put our information in the chat box. If you have any questions, I'm happy to share my experience as well. And Christelle and Rebecca will put their information in. Okay. And Michael, you and I can connect, and I can give you some feedback as well. Just want to again thank everybody for spending your hour with us today. We really, really appreciate it. Huge thanks to Christelle and Rebecca for being our experts and blowing it out of the park and answering all the questions. And your engagement's been great. Look forward to our next event together. We will follow up soon, and I bid you guys farewell. Have a great day.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
This has been great. Thank you.
Thank you.